Okay, so get ready because today we are setting sail for the age of sail. You might be thinking, oh, this is just a bunch of old ships and pirate stories, but I promise it's so much more than that. This is about a period in history that changed trade, warfare, even the way we see maps today. And to help us navigate this topic, we have the ultimate tool, Wikipedia. But don't worry, this isn't just about reading facts. We're going to find those like golden nuggets of knowledge. So you finish this and feel like you've been on an actual journey. So get ready to uncover some surprising things about the Age of Sail. Now, the Age of Sail, where do we even begin with this? It's one of those periods that's a little fuzzy on the edges, don't you think?
Yeah, it's true. We want to put dates on everything in history, but it doesn't always work that way. Like the Wikipedia article says it's roughly from the 16th to the mid-19th centuries, but that's really broad. It's like saying, when did music change from classical to jazz? You know, it's all blended together.
That's a really good point. So it's less about saying this is exactly when the Age of Sail was and more about a period when sail power was the main thing, but not the only thing.
Exactly. Like warships using sails. That's a perfect example. Wikipedia even mentions the Battle of Arnhem-Weiden in 1338. They were using cannons on ships. And that's way before the 16th century, which is when people say the Age of Sail really was. So things were already changing.
Like those early cannons were a sign of things to come. So we've got this change towards sail power. And then in the 15th century, Iberian exploration really heats things up. The article talks about those trips along the African coast and across the Atlantic. That's really the start of the Age of Discovery.
And it really changed the world. It wasn't just about adventure. They wanted to trade, to find new routes to the east. And honestly, they wanted power and wealth, even if it meant hurting people to get it.
It's true. Exploration, as exciting as it was, had another side to it.
Exactly. You can't talk about the Age of Sail without talking about the Iberian influence. They changed ship design, navigation, they found ways to connect continents.
It's like they opened the door to a whole new world. For better or worse, right? And those new routes meant new battles, too. We can't talk about the Age of Sail without talking about the battles, can we?
No, we can't. And one really important battle is the Battle of Lepanto in 1571.
Wikipedia calls it a turning point. What made this battle so important?
Okay, so imagine this. Two huge fleets fighting in the Mediterranean Sea. The Holy League against the Ottoman Empire. It was huge, and it changed how naval battles worked. You see, before Lepanto, oar-powered galleys were the main ships. But then came these bigger ships called galleasses. They had way more weapons, and they were really effective.
So cannons were becoming the deciding factor in who won a battle at sea.
Yes. Lepanto showed that having more firepower was crucial, and it set the stage for these big, powerful warships loaded with cannons.
It's almost like knights fighting, and then someone shows up with a machine gun.
That's a great comparison. It showed that the future was in ships designed to use as many weapons as possible.
Yeah. Okay, so Lepanto changed everything. But the Age of Sail wasn't all about fighting. There's also this period called the Golden Age of Sail. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the Golden Age of Sail. It's kind of a weird name because it doesn't mean the beginning or end of the Age of Sail. It's more like when sailing ships were at their absolute best.
Okay, so what made these ships and this time so special? Is it like all the pirate stories?
Well, there were definitely pirates, but the ships themselves were amazing. We're talking about clipper ships and windjammers. They were built for speed and efficiency.
I'm picturing these huge ships with giant sails, just gliding across the ocean.
Exactly. Some were over 200 feet long with hundreds of sails. Some clippers were even faster than early steamships, especially when the wind was right.
Wow, that's incredible. I get why they call it a golden age. It's like seeing something at its peak right before things start to change.
Exactly. It was a time of amazing skill, daring voyages, people pushing the limits of what you could do with a sail.
But like all golden ages, it couldn't last forever, right? Something new was coming that would challenge sail power. Steam.
That's right. It wasn't like overnight everyone switched from sails to steam. It happened kind of slowly. Steam had to prove it could work.
So it was more like a gradual change.
Yeah, exactly. And Wikipedia talks about a good example of this. The Aaron Manby in 1822.
The Aaron Manby, what was so special about that ship?
Well, it was the first iron steamship to cross the English Channel, which was a big deal back then. It showed that steamships could handle rough seas, and it got people thinking, hey, maybe these steamships are the real deal.
So it was like a test, showing that steamships weren't just some fad.
Right. And as steam technology got better, it was clear that it had advantages. Like the Crimean War in the mid-1800s. That was a big turning point. It was one of the first wars where steamships played a major role. And it was clear they were here to stay.
I bet those early steamships must have looked so out of place next to those big sailing ships.
Oh, they definitely did. But they could move fast. And they didn't need wind, which was a huge advantage in battle.
Right, makes sense. So steam is starting to take over, but then Wikipedia talks about these ironclads. That sounds like a whole new level of technology.
Oh, it was. Imagine warships covered in iron plates. Cannons couldn't even hurt them. It totally changed how naval battles were fought.
Wow, it's like bringing a tank to a sword fight.
Exactly. Those old wooden ships couldn't compete. France was the first. They built the Gloire in 1859, the first ironclad that could sail across the ocean.
And then everyone else started building them, right?
Oh, yeah. It was like a race. Everyone wanted bigger and stronger ironclads. And that was pretty much the end for sailing warships.
It's amazing how new technology can change everything.
It's true. And another thing that changed the game was the Suez Canal, which opened in 1869.
Oh yeah, the Suez Canal. That was a huge accomplishment. How did that affect things?
Well, before the canal, ships going from Europe to Asia had to sail all the way around Africa. It took forever, but the canal was like a shortcut.
Made things much faster.
Exactly. And that was good for everyone, but especially for steamships. They could get through the canal quickly and stay on schedule, which was really important for trade.
So the Suez Canal wasn't the end for sailing ships, but it gave steamships a big advantage.
Exactly. And then in 1871, a ship was built that really marked the end of an era. HMS Devastation.
HMS Devastation. With a name like that, it must have been something else. What was so special about it?
The Devastation was a new kind of battleship, one with no sails at all. It was a total change from the traditional warships, and it showed that the Navy was fully committed to steam power.
Wow, that really does feel like the end of an era. It's interesting, though, sailing ships didn't just disappear, did they?
You're right, they didn't. Wikipedia says they were still being used in the 20th century for certain things.
Really? Why was that?
Money, mostly. Even though sailing ships were slower, they didn't need fuel. So for certain routes and cargo, they were still cheaper.
That's a good reminder that sometimes the old ways still work.
Yep.
But eventually, the age of sail did come to an end. But it's kind of cool to think that maybe we're entering a new age of sail now.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, right? We don't have those huge sailing warships anymore, but more and more people are talking about using wind power for ships today.
So are we going back to those giant sails? Not exactly those old-fashioned ones, but it's a similar idea.
Yeah, we're talking about using new technology with this old energy source, like giant kites or really strong sails that computers can control.
So instead of getting rid of engines entirely, it's more like helping them out, making shipping greener.
Exactly. It's like combining the best of the old and the new.
I like it. Shows that even with all this new technology, we can still get inspiration from the past. And who knows? Maybe we really will see more ships using wind power in the future. Well, there you have it. We've traveled through the entire age of sail, from the very beginning to the end. And we even peeked into the future. What surprised you the most?
For me, it's how much those early explorers were willing to risk. I mean, sailing across the ocean without knowing what was out there, that took some serious guts.
For sure. What about you guys? Anything surprise you? Let us know. You can find us on all the socials. Okay, but for now, we've reached the end of our journey. Hope you enjoyed sailing with us through the age of sail. Until next time, keep exploring.
All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we're going back in time.
Taking a deep dive.
Yeah, a deep dive into the world of Elvis Presley.
The one and only.
The king, the legend. I mean, this is big.
This is big. You sent us his entire Wikipedia page.
A mountain of information.
Isn't that a lot to unpack?
That's what we do here, though, right? We dig in, we find those golden nuggets, and I'm telling you, with Elvis, there's a lot.
There are. And you know what? Before we get to those hip-shaking, chart-topping hits, Elvis's story starts with a little bit of melancholy.
Yeah.
He was a twin, but sadly his brother, Jesse Garon, was still born.
Wow. I actually didn't know that. I had no idea.
It's a lesser-known fact, for sure.
Wow. That's heavy stuff.
It is.
Especially for a young Elvis.
I
I imagine that really shaped him.
Absolutely. It deeply impacted his relationship with his mother, Gladys. I mean, imagine that grief. Imagine the weight of that grief and what that does to a family, to a young boy and his bond with his surviving son.
Yeah.
It adds, this early experience adds a layer of depth to his story, and we can't discount how it might have shaped his personality, even his music.
That's a really good point. Good reminder that behind all the The dazzle, the stage presence, real person, real life experiences shaped who he became.
Absolutely.
Well, let's talk about those influences.
Yeah.
This wasn't just a guy with a good voice talk about a musical melting pot.
Hmm.
Elvis blended genres like crazy.
He did. You've got the soulful sounds of gospel music, you've got that storytelling tradition of country, and then the raw energy of rhythm and blues. Elvis brought all of that together.
Yeah, he did.
And we're talking about influences like Arthur Crudup. Oh, yeah.
Those bluesy guitar riffs, they really resonated with Elvis. And then you've got Rufus Thomas, that energetic stage presence. You can see how that left a mark.
You can totally see it. Like, he took all those ingredients and bam, cooked up something totally new and exciting.
Right.
And those early Sun Records recordings, that's where you really hear it all come together.
Those early recordings, they were raw, energetic, unlike anything people had ever heard before.
Yeah.
I mean, this wasn't just music. This was a cultural earthquake.
And a huge part of that earthquake, you got to talk about the moves.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get there.
Oh, you know what's funny? I was reading, he actually failed music in high school.
You're kidding?
Can you believe that?
No.
The future king of rock and roll flunking music class.
That's wild.
It goes to show you, some people, they're just born with it. It's true. And it speaks to that natural musicality that he had, that innate sense of rhythm and melody. You can't teach that in a classroom.
Yeah.
He was picking up guitar, bass, piano, all by ear.
Wow.
A natural. But it wasn't just the music that made people sit up and listen. It was the way he moved on stage.
Oh, absolutely. We cannot gloss over the impact of those hip movements. I mean, come on. He sent shockwaves through America. The Ed Sullivan Show, legendary.
It's iconic. You have this young man oozing with charisma, challenging what was considered decent to be shown on television, particularly at that time, and people went wild. The young people especially, they went wild.
They were captivated.
Yeah.
Absolutely captivated.
Yeah.
And he was like this rebel, a rebel with a rhythm, and it tapped into something huge that was happening.
It did.
This changing landscape of America, this emergence of youth culture. He became a symbol of that, whether people liked it or not.
And don't forget, this was a time when television was still finding its feet. So these appearances that Elvis made, these weren't just performances, these were events.
Events, yeah.
And the conversations that they sparked, I mean, talk about pushing boundaries, censorship, morality, the role of popular culture. Elvis was right at the center of it all.
Wow. I mean, it's amazing how one performer could shake things up so much. That Ed Sullivan appearance, that was just the tip of the iceberg, right? We're talking movies, #1 hits, screaming fans. I mean, Elvis was everywhere.
He was inescapable. You couldn't escape him. And his influence, seismic. Fashion, music, movies, he set trends like nobody else. And you know that level of fame, that reach. It played a huge part in cementing his legendary status.
Yeah.
This wasn't just a singer anymore. This was a phenomenon.
Yeah, it really was a phenomenon. But even with all that success, Elvis's life, it wasn't without his heartache. This Wikipedia page talks about his time in the military. And while he was stationed in Germany, his mom, Gladys, passed away. And knowing how close they were, man, that must have been incredibly difficult for him.
Oh, it was devastating. They had an incredibly tight bond. And to lose her so suddenly while serving overseas, it really affected him deeply. And it's important to remember, behind the music, the movies, the persona, this was a man dealing with very real grief.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder that fame and fortune, they don't protect you from the pain of loss. And speaking of painful topics, we have to address this rumor that's been swirling around for years, this ugly claim that Elvis made a racist remark about his black fans. So what's the truth behind that?
Okay, so that rumor has been debunked and debunked again and debunked again. Multiple sources, including a black journalist who interviewed Elvis, have gone on record to set the story straight. It's simply not true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. That's good to hear. But there's no denying that his relationship with race and cultural appropriation is complex. So how do we reconcile his love for black music with the realities of the time? How do we do that?
It's definitely a nuanced issue, for sure. And we have to acknowledge the historical context here. Elvis, he was vocal about his admiration for black artists. He praised their music openly and credited them as his primary influences.
Yeah, and he wasn't shy about it either. He said something like, wasn't it rock and roll was born from gospel and rhythm and blues? I mean, that's a pretty bold statement for that time.
Exactly, and he made that statement during his '68 comeback special. I mean, imagine the impact of those words, especially coming from someone with his level of fame.
Right.
But you're right, it was a different time. The music industry was incredibly segregated, and black artists faced systemic obstacles that Elvis, as a white artist in that era, simply didn't have to deal with. It's a tough conversation, but it's an important one to have.
It is. It is. Well said. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about those movies. Elvis starred in a bunch of them. Tickle Me, Viva Las Vegas, Blue Hawaii. He was a box office draw.
Over 30 films, mostly musicals and romantic comedies. And yeah, while they may not be considered, high art, they were incredibly popular. And they further solidified Elvis as this global icon. People flocked to theaters just to see him sing, see him dance, and just charm his way across the screen.
Oh, they were pure entertainment. Just a chance to see Elvis in action. But he did try his hand at more serious roles, right? I think of King Creole or Flaming Star.
He did, and those films allowed him to kind of flex his acting muscles and showcase, I think, a different side of his talent. And King Creole, in particular, was critically acclaimed. Many cite it as his best dramatic performance. And so while his more dramatic roles, they weren't always box office smashes, they demonstrated his range, and his ambition as an actor.
It really makes you wonder what kind of dramatic roles he might have taken on if things had gone differently. But let's get back to the music. Because after his movie years, he had this incredible comeback in the late 1960s. So what reignited his career?
So the '68 comeback special, that was a pivotal moment for Elvis. He ditched those elaborate sets and costumes, and he opted for a stripped-down, intimate performance. Dressed in black leather, he reminded everyone of that raw talent and charisma that made him a star in the first place.
That leather jumpsuit, talk about iconic. It was like he was shedding that movie star image and returning to his rock and roll roots. It really was a real statement. He was back, and the world definitely took notice.
They did, yeah.
So the comeback special led to this whole resurgence in his music career. Hit albums like From Elvis in Memphis, those legendary Las Vegas performances.
Those Vegas shows, they became legendary.
Oh, yeah.
But, this is where the story takes, I think, a little bit of a turn. Because despite all the success, he was battling some personal demons and his health was declining.
It's true.
Yeah.
It reminds you, even with all the fame and fortune, life can throw you curveballs, right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned he was grappling with some personal challenges, so.
Yeah, despite his outward success, Elvis struggled, with addiction, a sense of isolation. His marriage had ended, and those close to him definitely noticed a change.
It's a side of the story we don't often hear, right? The pressures of fame and the toll that it can take on a person's life. But even with all that, his music, it continued to resonate with millions of people.
It did, and it's a testament to his talent, his enduring legacy. And here's something that always surprises people. He won 3 Grammy Awards.
I did hear that. What's wild is that they were all for his gospel music.
Right.
Not for the rock and roll that made him famous.
Exactly. It shows you the depth of his musicality.
Right.
Gospel music held a special place in his heart. It was his roots. It was his solace. And those Grammy wins, I think, were a testament to his lifelong passion.
It's amazing. Speaking of amazing, we got to talk about this meeting with President Nixon. I mean, it sounds like something out of a movie.
It does, doesn't it?
What happened there?
It's this bizarre little footnote in his story.
Yeah.
Elvis, concerned about drug use in America, he wants to offer his services to President Nixon.
Wow.
Even suggests that he could become like a federal agent.
Wait, hold on. He wanted to be a narcotics agent.
He did.
I never would pictured that.
He even brought Nixon a Colt .45 pistol as a gift. The whole thing is, it's a story that just captures, I think, those contradictions of Elvis's life.
It really does.
The fame, the good intentions, maybe a slightly misguided approach.
Yeah, you could say that. Well, we covered a lot of ground highs and lows, the music, the movies, even a presidential encounter.
It's a lot, yeah.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Elvis Presley, what's the one thing you hope our listeners walk away with?
I think Elvis's story is a powerful reminder that behind the dazzling lights and the iconic music, there was a complex human being, a man full of contradictions, full of heart, driven by his passions and forever changed by his experiences. And his legacy, it continues to fascinate and inspire, I think, and it reminds us of the power of music to transcend time.
Beautifully said. And for all of you listening, we hope this deep dive has given you a glimpse into the world of the king of rock and roll.
He was one of a kind.
Elvis Presley's story. It's a testament to the power of music, the complexities of fame, and the enduring legacy of a true icon.
All right, let's dive in. Today, we are going super small to the world of nanomedicine, where tiny tech meets the human body.
Sounds pretty complex.
It is, but you actually sent over this Wikipedia article on nanomedicine, and it is fascinating.
I'm ready to learn more.
Well, just imagine like microscopic robots repairing your body from the inside out, or even just like saying goodbye to all the horrible side effects of chemo because of targeted drug delivery. That's the promise of nanomedicine, and we're going to unpack it all.
That sounds pretty amazing. And you're right, it is really moving quickly from like science fiction to reality.
Yeah.
We're talking about using like nanomaterials and nanobiosensors,
Right.
and even potentially microscopic biological machines in the future to really like revolutionize medicine
Yeah.
as we know it.
It's hard to even like wrap your head around how tiny this tech is.
Right.
The article says a nanometer is 1/1000th of a meter.
Yeah.
So to put that into perspective, like that's smaller than most biological molecules.
That's right. And that size is actually like what makes nanomedicine so groundbreaking.
Right.
Because it can interact with our body at a cellular level.
Right.
It offers a lot of precision and possibilities.
So tiny tech, but huge potential.
Absolutely.
Let's start with drug delivery.
Okay.
How does nanomedicine change the game there?
So imagine a drug that goes straight to a cancer cell
Okay.
without harming any of the healthy cells on the way.
Right.
And nanoparticles can be designed to do just that.
So fewer side effects, lower doses needed, especially for things like chemo.
Yeah.
The article even mentions that the FDA has already approved some nano-based drugs.
Yes, several actually. There's Doxil, which uses liposomes, basically tiny spheres,
Okay.
that encapsulate the drug to treat certain cancers.
Yeah.
And there's also Rapamune, another one that's been approved, and that helps prevent organ rejection
Right.
after transplants. And it's interesting to note that liposomes, using those for drug delivery, was actually first proposed back in 1974. So, scientists have been working on this targeted treatment for a very long time.
That's a great point. It's not just like this brand new thing.
Right.
But the article also mentions some potential challenges.
Yeah.
Things like biodistribution and nanotoxicity. Like, what are those?
Yeah, so biodistribution, basically, that refers to where these nanoparticles end up in the body.
Okay.
So we need to make sure that they're going where they're supposed to,
Right.
not accumulating in unintended areas.
Makes sense.
And nanotoxicity, on the other hand, looks at, well, could these particles have any harmful effects?
Right.
It's a reminder that while the potential of nanomedicine is huge,
Yeah.
we need to be really thorough in ensuring its safety.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, so besides delivering drugs with pinpoint accuracy, what else can these nanoparticles do?
Well,
The article talks about using them for imaging,
yeah,
which sounds pretty incredible.
they can act as like super contrast agents for imaging techniques, like MRI and ultrasound.
Got it.
So this allows doctors to see things in much greater detail,
Right.
leading to earlier and more accurate diagnoses.
So we're talking about like literally seeing things at a microscopic level.
Exactly. The article even mentions using quantum dots for this.
Okay.
So these nanoparticles actually glow under UV light.
Wow.
Imagine a surgeon like being able to clearly see a tumor
Right.
illuminated during surgery.
Wow.
This level of precision could like totally revolutionize surgical procedures.
Yeah.
And it's all thanks to quantum dots' unique ability to like absorb light and re-emit it in a different color,
Wow.
making the tumor visible.
Okay, so that's way beyond like just a regular X-ray.
Absolutely.
And on top of that, the article mentions sensors on the nanoscale.
Yes.
What's that all about?
Nanotechnology is being used to create incredibly sensitive sensors
Okay.
that can detect really tiny amounts of biomarkers, those telltale signs of disease.
Okay.
Think about it. Early diagnosis, potentially catching diseases like cancer at a stage where treatment is much more effective.
Right, catching it early is huge.
Yeah.
The article even mentions this lab-on-a-chip concept.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
So imagine a device the size of your phone
Okay.
that can diagnose multiple diseases
Right.
with just a drop of blood.
Wow.
That's the idea behind the lab on a chip,
Yeah.
using nanotechnology to make healthcare more personalized and accessible.
So we've got these tiny particles delivering drugs,
Yeah.
lighting up tumors, acting as super sensitive disease detectors.
Yeah.
It sounds like something straight out of Star Trek. But the article hints at even like wilder possibilities like tissue engineering.
Yeah, this is where things get really mind-blowing.
Okay.
Think of nanomaterials as like microscopic building blocks,
Okay.
helping to repair and even regenerate damaged tissues and organs.
Hold on. Are we talking like science fiction here?
Ah,
Building organs with microscopic building blocks.
it sounds futuristic,
Yeah.
but there are real examples of this happening already.
Really?
The article describes a flesh welder,
Okay.
a device that uses gold-coated nanoshells and a laser
Okay.
to fuse pieces of chicken meat together.
What?
It's still early stage,
Yeah.
but imagine the possibilities for repairing injuries
Right.
or even growing new organs.
Okay, now my mind is officially blown.
Yeah.
Repairing our bodies at the cellular level, like, what does that even mean for the future of health and aging?
That's the question scientists are currently grappling with.
Yeah.
The article even mentions cell repair machines
Right.
and life extension as future possibilities.
Right.
If we can repair the damage that builds up in our cells over time, who knows what the implications could be for human lifespan?
Whoa, so we've gone from like targeted drug delivery to mind-blowing imaging
Yeah.
to super sensitive diagnostics, and now the potential to like regenerate tissue and even extend life.
Pretty amazing.
I feel like I need to take a break to like process all of this.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to absorb.
Yeah.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
Right.
There's so much more to explore in the world of nanomedicine.
Well, before we get ahead of ourselves, there's one thing I'm like curious about.
Yeah.
The article mentions regulatory challenges for nanomedicine.
Yeah.
What does that entail?
It's a crucial point.
Yeah.
So developing safe and effective nanomedicines is just one part of the equation.
Right.
We also need to navigate this like complex regulatory landscape
Okay.
to make sure these technologies are used responsibly
Right.
and are accessible to everyone who needs them.
Right. Because, like, what good is a groundbreaking treatment if it's only available to a select few?
Exactly. The article highlights concerns about safety,
Yeah.
manufacturing complexity, and ethical considerations.
Okay.
We need to ensure that nanomedicine is developed and deployed in a way that benefits everyone,
Of course.
not just a privileged few.
Mind-blowing imaging, super sensors, the potential for tissue regeneration, and even the regulatory hurdles this field faces. It's clear that nanomedicine has the potential to, like, revolutionize healthcare in ways we can only begin to imagine.
Absolutely. It's a field that really sparks the imagination
Yeah.
and offers real hope for tackling some of humanity's like biggest health challenges.
Before we move on to the next part of this deep dive, I want to hear what's grabbed your attention the most so far. What stands out to you about all of this?
Well, what I find truly remarkable is how many different fields are converging to make these advancements possible.
Right.
Like we've got biology, engineering, chemistry, medicine.
Yeah.
It's a real testament to like human ingenuity and collaboration.
I agree. It's inspiring to see, like, what's possible when brilliant minds come together.
Yeah.
Okay, are you ready to dive into the next section of this fascinating article?
Absolutely. Let's see what other incredible advancements await us in the world of nanomedicine. You know, one area that really caught my eye in the article is the section on vaccine development.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it seems that nanotechnology is already having a big impact there.
Absolutely. I was surprised by how much progress has already been made. The article mentions that nanoparticles can be used as adjuvants, substances that boost the immune response to vaccines.
Right, like giving our immune systems a little extra help.
Yeah, exactly.
And not only that, but they're also researching these virus-like nanoparticles, so structures that mimic viruses,
Okay.
but they don't contain any actual genetic material.
Oh, so they can't actually make you sick.
Exactly.
That's a relief.
Yeah, they're designed to trigger a strong immune response
Okay.
without the risk of causing an infection.
Got it.
It's a really fascinating approach to vaccine development.
So to recap, we have these tiny particles delivering drugs right where they need to go, lighting up tumors so surgeons can see them better, detecting diseases super early, and now they're even helping us create better vaccines. Is there anything these nanoparticles can't do?
Well, the article does touch on some even more futuristic possibilities.
Okay.
It talks about medical devices at the nanoscale.
Medical devices, like what? Tiny robots roaming around our bodies fixing things?
Not quite robots, at least not yet. But the article does mention neuroelectronic interfacing.
Okay.
So imagine nano devices that can connect computers directly to your nervous system.
Well, hold on. Were we talking about like brain-computer interfaces?
It sounds like science fiction.
Yeah.
But researchers are actually working on this.
Wow.
The goal is to develop these nanostructures that can control and detect nerve impulses,
Right.
potentially allowing for communication between the brain and external devices.
That's wild. What could that be used for?
Oh, the potential applications are huge.
Yeah.
Imagine being able to, like, treat neurological disorders, restore lost senses, or even enhance, cognitive abilities.
It's almost too much to comprehend. But
Yeah.
the article also mentions some challenges with this.
Yes. Things like potential electrical interference.
Okay.
And just the complexity of integrating these devices with the human body.
Yeah.
Those are significant hurdles that need to be overcome.
Of course.
But the potential benefits are so enormous
Right.
that researchers are determined to find solutions.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. The next section of the article focuses on something called cell repair machines.
Okay.
What are those all about?
This is where we really start pushing the boundaries of what's possible. The article talks about the concept of molecular nanotechnology.
Okay.
So the idea of building machines at the molecular level.
Machines so small they can operate inside cells. Is that even possible?
It's still highly theoretical. But some scientists believe that one day we'll be able to create nanorobots
Okay.
capable of repairing damage at the cellular level.
Nanorobots. Okay. Now I'm picturing tiny little robots with like wrenches and screwdrivers fixing things inside my cells. Is that even like remotely accurate?
Well, the specific designs are still largely speculative.
Okay.
But the underlying principle is that these machines could be programmed to target and repair specific cellular components,
Right.
potentially reversing the effects of aging and disease.
Reverse aging. Are we talking about like immortality here?
Immortality might be a bit of a stretch, but the article does mention life extension
Okay.
as a potential outcome of this technology. If we can repair the damage that accumulates in our cells over time,
Right.
it's conceivable that we could significantly extend the human lifespan.
Okay, now my head is spinning. Nanorobots, cell repair machines, life extension. We've gone from science fact to science fiction in the blink of an eye. It's hard to even imagine what healthcare would look like if these things become reality.
It's important to remember that this particular area of nanomedicine is still very much in its infancy.
Okay.
There are huge technological hurdles
Right.
to overcome
Yeah.
before we see these kind of advancements.
Yeah.
But the possibilities are certainly tantalizing.
Absolutely. We're talking about fundamentally changing the way we approach healthcare, potentially moving from treating diseases to actually repairing the underlying damage at the cellular level.
Right.
Like it's a paradigm shift.
That's the ultimate goal of nanomedicine,
Yeah.
to shift the paradigm of
Yeah.
healthcare.
Right.
From reactive to proactive, from treating symptoms to addressing the root causes of disease.
It's a bold vision and one that I find incredibly exciting. But before we get too carried away with all the possibilities, we need to talk about the realities of bringing this technology to the masses.
Right.
The article does mention regulatory challenges, right?
Absolutely. Developing safe and effective nanomedicines is just one part of the equation. We also need to navigate the complex regulatory landscape and ensure that these technologies are accessible to everyone who needs them.
Right. Because what good is a groundbreaking new treatment if it's only available to a select few?
Exactly. The article highlights some of the key issues, like concerns about safety,
Okay.
manufacturing complexity,
Right.
and the need for careful consideration of the potential impacts of these powerful technologies.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to the vast potential and complexities of nanomedicine. We've gone from targeted drug delivery to mind-blowing imaging to the possibility of cell repair machines and life extension.
Yeah.
It's almost too much to take in.
It is a lot.
What are your thoughts on all this?
If we connect all of this to the bigger picture, I think the key takeaway is that nanomedicine has the potential to revolutionize healthcare in ways we can only begin to imagine.
Right.
But we need to proceed with caution,
Yeah.
ensuring that these powerful technologies are developed and deployed responsibly.
And to think, all of this started with one Wikipedia article.
I know.
Who knew so much information and inspiration could be packed into a single source?
That's the beauty of knowledge. It has a ripple effect.
Yeah.
One small piece of information can spark a whole chain of new ideas and discoveries.
Well said. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
there's one more fascinating topic to explore. The potential for nanomedicine to help us treat one of the most challenging medical conditions,
Yeah.
sepsis. So before we wrap up, let's talk about sepsis. The article mentions that nanomedicine could play a role in treating this condition, which I have to admit I don't know much about.
Well, sepsis is a life-threatening condition. It happens when the body's response to an infection ends up damaging its own tissues and organs.
Okay.
It's complex and often difficult to treat.
So how could something as tiny as nanotechnology help with something as serious as sepsis?
Well, the article describes how nanoparticles could be used to, purify the blood, removing the toxins and harmful substances that contribute to sepsis. It's almost like a nanoscale dialysis machine.
A dialysis machine, but microscopic? That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
How would that even work?
Imagine tiny magnetic nanoparticles
Okay.
coated with special binding agents.
Right.
These agents can latch onto specific toxins and bacteria in the blood,
Okay.
and then using an external magnetic field,
Right.
doctors could remove these nanoparticles, along with all the harmful stuff they've captured, from the bloodstream.
So it's like using tiny magnets to clean the blood. That's some, seriously advanced medical technology.
It is. It's a very promising approach, and research is ongoing
Yeah.
to develop and refine these techniques. But as with any new medical technology, there are always potential risks and challenges.
The article does mention some concerns about potential toxicity
Right.
and the need for more research to ensure these methods are safe.
Exactly. It's crucial to be cautious and thorough to make sure that any new treatment is both effective and safe for patients.
This deep dive has been an incredible journey into the world of nanomedicine.
It has.
We've covered everything from targeted drug delivery and super contrast imaging to the mind-boggling possibilities of tissue engineering, cell repair machines, and even life extension.
Right.
It's clear that this field has the potential to completely transform healthcare as we know it.
It's really just the beginning.
Yeah.
Nanomedicine is a rapidly evolving field.
Right.
And I think the next few decades are going to bring even more groundbreaking discoveries and innovations. It's a really exciting time to be following this field.
It certainly is. But with all these amazing possibilities, there's one thing that keeps coming back to me. How do we make sure these powerful technologies are available to everyone?
That's a great question.
How do we address the ethical and economic considerations and ensure that nanomedicine helps create a healthier and more equitable future, for all?
Yeah, that's a critical point. It's not enough to just develop these incredible technologies.
Right.
We need to make sure they're accessible and affordable to everyone who needs them.
Of course.
Otherwise, we risk creating a future where the benefits of nanomedicine are only available to a privileged few.
I couldn't agree more. As we
Yeah.
move forward, it's crucial to have these open and inclusive conversations about the ethical, social, and economic implications of nanomedicine.
Yeah.
We need to make sure these advancements, benefit all of humanity.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. Nanomedicine holds incredible promise for the future of healthcare.
Right.
But it's up to all of us to ensure that this future is one where everyone benefits from these groundbreaking advancements.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the fascinating world of nanomedicine. I encourage you to keep exploring this ever-evolving field. Who knows what incredible breakthroughs await us in the years to come. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those imaginations firing.